You remember how I disappeared for a few weeks? Yeah, that wasn't by choice. Dad died fine line. Instead of just leaving us the money like a normal person, he decided to play one last game with us. His will said all three of us had to live together in that awful mansion for a whole year if we wanted our inheritance. A full year with Alex and Tristan. I'd rather chew glass, so there we were, standing in the foyer like some bad family reunion. Alex was already in full dictator mode, acting like he owned the place just because he was the one who stuck around to watch Dad get old and bitter. Tristan was scrolling through his phone like none of this mattered, but I could tell he was nervous. He always fidgets when he's hiding something, and then the lawyer handed us these letters from Dad. Like he wasn't done messing with us even after he was gone. Tristan opened his first because he has no self-control. One look at his face and I knew it was bad. Turns out Dad knew about the money he'd been stealing from the company. Not just suspected knew, okay? And now we all knew too. Alex's letter was worse in a different way, okay? It basically said, you spent years resenting them for leaving, but you never asked why. And for the first time, I saw him actually hesitate. Like maybe he'd been wrong about us this whole time. Then there was mine. It's just one line. I found your stash the night you left. I thought I'd been so careful. I thought nobody knew. But of course he did. He always knew everything. So there we were. 3 grown adults standing in silence, realizing Dad had set us up. This wasn't about money. It was about forcing us to deal with all the things we'd spent years running from. And the worst part was only day 1. The second week was worse than the first. Alex started treating the house like a military compound, leaving stupid notes about cleaning schedules and grocery lists like we were his cadets. I came downstairs one morning to find he'd actually made a chore wheel. A chore wheel. 4 grown adults. I tore it off the fridge and threw it in the fireplace. Tristan disappeared again for 2 days straight. When he finally slunk back in at 3 a.m., he smelled like cheap whiskey and panic. I cornered him in the kitchen and asked what the hell his problem was. He wouldn't look at me, just kept muttering about how Dad's letter mentioned account numbers, dates, exact amounts. Exact amounts, then the real bomb dropped. We got a call from the family lawyer. Someone had been anonymously tipping off the SEC about financial irregularities at Sterling Holdings. Tristan turned green. Alex started pacing like a caged animal. I just laughed. Of course, Dad would have a backup plan to ruin us if we didn't play along. The house started feeling less like a mansion and more like a prison. I found myself staring at the antique liquor cabinet in the study every night, counting how many days I'd been sober. The worst part, Alex noticed. He didn't say anything, just started leaving those horrible herbal teas outside my door every morning like some kind of passive-aggressive wellness coach. Things came to a head when Tristan's creditors started calling. Real charming guys, the kind who don't take no for an answer. They showed up at the house demanding payment. And let's just say they weren't impressed by the whole waiting for inheritance story. Alex had to actually pull Dad's old shotgun from the study to get them to leave. That night, we all sat in the library like strangers. Tristan was shaking. Alex was stone-faced. I was trying not to think about how easy it would be to walk to the nearest bar. Then Tristan said something that changed everything. Dad didn't just know about the money I took. He knew about all of it. The gambling, the debts, everything. The letter. It said he'd been covering for me for years. Alex looked like he'd been punched. I realized then that Dad hadn't just been watching Tristan. He'd been watching all of us. The next morning, I found Alex sitting at the kitchen table with 3 envelopes in front of him. Not from Dad this time, from Mom. They'd been in the safe all along. Hadn't opened any of them. We sat there for an hour just staring at those envelopes. None of us wanted to be the first to touch them. Because whatever was inside, it was going to hurt. And that's when the real game began. The rain hammered against the windows of the library as the 3 of us sat staring at the lawyer's document. The words "final condition met" seemed to pulse on the page. I reached out to touch the paper, half expecting it to burn my fingers. Alex was the first to speak. What does this actually mean? His voice sounded hollow in the tuck-quiet room. The lawyer adjusted her glasses. It means your father's entire estate is now fully available to you. The trust has been released. The house, the investments, everything. Tristan let out a shaky breath. Just like that, 'cause we've read some letters and didn't kill each other for 3 weeks. The lawyer didn't smile. Your father was very specific in his instructions. The conditions weren't about time. They were about, she hesitated, reconciliation. I wanted to laugh. Reconciliation. We hadn't reconciled anything. We'd just stopped pretending we didn't hate each other quite so loudly. Alex took the document and studied it like he expected to find hidden code. There's more to this. What aren't you telling us? The lawyer's expression didn't change. I'm simply here to inform you the trust is released. The rest is up to you to discover. When she left, the silence in the house felt heavier than before. Tristan broke first. Doesn't make sense. Dad wasn't sentimental. It's no way. He set all this up just to, what? Make us play nice. I walked to the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. He knew about your debts. He knew about my ... problems. He knew Alex was drowning, trying to hold everything together. My breath fogged the cold glass. This wasn't about the money. Alex made a frustrated noise. Then what was it about? The answer came from an unexpected place. The house phone rang. We all froze. No one had used that phone in years, Alex answered. His face went pale. Yes, we'll be there. He hung up and turned to us. That was St. Mary's Hospital. Dad's safe deposit box there was set to be released to us today. The drive to the hospital was silent. The rain had turned into a downpour, matching the storm in my chest. The box was small, metal, unremarkable. Inside were 3 items: a faded photograph of all 5 of us: Mom, Dad, Alex, me. Tristan, at some beach vacation I barely remembered. A medical file with Mom's name on it and a key. Alex opened the medical file first. His hands shook as he read. Then he passed it to me without a word. The diagnosis was clear. Early onset Alzheimer's, dated 6 months before Mom's car accident. The accident we'd all believed was just that. An accident. Tristan made a wounded noise. She knew. She was losing herself. And she ... I couldn't breathe. All these years I'd blamed Dad for working too much, for not being there, for not seeing how much we were all falling apart. But he had seen, and Mom had known what was coming. The key was for a storage unit. The address was scribbled on a slip of paper in Dad's handwriting. We went there immediately. The unit was full of boxes, neatly labeled, 1 for each of us. Alex opened his first. Inside were all the reports, cards, awards, every achievement from school he thought no one had noticed. Tristan's held every stupid drawing he'd made as a kid. Every report from teachers saying he was bright but unfocused. Mine ... Mine held notebooks. Dozens of them. Lyrics, poems, all the writing I'd done. Before I started numbing everything with pills and alcohol. Things I'd forgotten I'd ever cared about. At the bottom of each box was an envelope. We opened them together, Dad's handwriting this time. I kept these because I didn't know how to tell you I was proud of you. I thought there would be more time. I was wrong. Tristan sat down hard on the concrete floor. Alex leaned against the wall like his legs wouldn't hold him. I held my letter so tight the paper wrinkled. All this time, I thought Dad's silence meant he didn't care. Turns out he cared. Too much to find the right words. The last box was unlabeled. Inside was a single file folder. Alex opened it. His breath caught. These are adoption papers, he whispered. For a terrible second, I thought one of us wasn't really theirs. Then I saw the date, 6 months after Mom died. For a child who would have been 8 years old now. A child who was never adopted. Because Dad got sick instead. Tristan's voice cracked. He was trying to. After Mom, ... I couldn't speak ... all these years. I'd thought Dad stopped caring about family when Mom died, but he'd been trying to save one, just like he'd been trying to save us. We sat in that storage unit for hours, surrounded by the pieces of our family, putting together the story we'd been too angry to see, the story of a man who loved us so much it terrified him, and who we'd almost been too late to understand. The storage unit smelled like dust and old paper. We sat there in silence for what felt like hours, surrounded by the fragments of our father's carefully preserved memories. The adoption papers lay between us like a live grenade with the pin pulled. Alex was the first to move. He reached for the papers with unsteady hands, scanning them slowly. This was dated 2 years before his diagnosis, he said quietly. He was going to adopt a child. I picked up one of the attached forms, a home study report. It detailed our family history, the stability of our home, Dad's financial situation, all the reasons why he would make a good parent. The date at the top was 1 week before Mom's accident. Tristan made a strangled noise in his throat. He was doing this with Mom. Alex nodded, still staring at the papers. They must have started the process together before ... He trailed off. Before Mom got sick, before she found out she was losing herself piece by piece, before that rainy night. When her car went off the road ... I flipped through more pages. The application had been nearly complete when it was abruptly withdrawn. The withdrawal notice was dated 3 days after Mom's funeral. He gave up, Tristan said. His voice sounded raw. Alex shook his head. No, look, it's pointed to a later document. He reapplied 2 years later, solo, this time. The new application was even more thorough than the first. There were letters of recommendation from family, friends, financial statements, even a handwritten note from Dad about why he wanted to be a parent. Reading his words in that familiar, precise handwriting made my chest ache. The trail of paperwork continued for another year before stopping abruptly again. This time, there was no withdrawal notice. It's just a final memo from the adoption agency, expressing regret that Mr. Sterling needed to pause the process due to unforeseen health circumstances. The date matched exactly with when Dad had been diagnosed with the same degenerative condition that took Mom. Tristan stood up suddenly, knocking over a box. I need air. He practically ran out of the storage unit. Alex didn't try to stop him. He just kept methodically going through the documents as if solving this puzzle could somehow make sense of everything. I picked up a small notebook that had fallen from one of the boxes. Inside were lists in Dad's handwriting, baby names divided into M and F columns. Pediatrician recommendations, school district notes. The pages were worn, like he'd looked at them often. At the very back was a photograph paper clipped to the last page. A little girl with dark braids and a gap-toothed smile stared back at me. Written on the back in Dad's handwriting, Sophia, age 6, waiting for her forever family. My hands started shaking. Alex looked up when I didn't say anything. He took the photo from me gently, his expression unreadable. He picked someone, he said after a long moment. He chose her. We found the rest of the story in a sealed envelope at the bottom of the box. Inside was a letter from the adoption agency dated just last year. They were checking to see if Mr. Sterling was still interested in pursuing adoption, as Sophia was still waiting for placement. There was a note attached from Dad's lawyer explaining that due to declining health, Mr. Sterling regrettably could no longer proceed. The last page was a handwritten letter from Dad that had never been sent. Dear Sophia, it began. I'm sorry. I won't get to be your father after all. I had to stop reading. We found Tristan outside leaning against the car, staring at nothing. He didn't speak when we approached, just held out his phone. On the screen was a website for a local adoption agency. It's currently featuring a profile for an 8-year-old girl named Sophia. Her smile was exactly the same as in the photo. She's still there, Tristan said hoarsely. Still waiting? The drive back to the house was silent. None of us knew what to say. The weight of what we'd discovered pressed down on me until I could barely breathe. all these years, I'd seen Dad as this cold, distant figure who cared more about business than family. I never imagined he'd been trying to rebuild ours. That night, I dreamed of Mom. It was one of those vivid dreams that feels more like memory. She was standing in the kitchen humming, the way she used to when she thought no one was listening. When she turned to me, her eyes were clear and bright. "He was always better at showing than telling," she said. Then the dream shifted and I was standing in an empty nursery. Listening to a child's laughter from another room, I woke with a start to someone knocking on my door. It was Alex. He looked like he hadn't slept. "We need to talk," he said. All of us. Downstairs in the study, Tristan was already waiting, nursing a cup of coffee. The adoption papers were spread out on the desk between us. Alex took a deep breath. "I think we should finish what Dad started." Tristan's head snapped up. "What?" "With Sophia," Alex clarified. His voice was steady, but his hands were clenched tight. "I've been looking into it. The trust release gives us more than enough resources. The house has plenty of space." "Are you serious?" Tristan interrupted. "Do you want us to adopt a kid? Now when we can barely stand each other?" Alex didn't back down. "I want us to do this for Dad, for Mom, for—" He hesitated. "For us." I stared at him. This wasn't the Alex I knew, the one who planned everything down to the minute, who never took risks, who always played it safe. Tristan looked at me helplessly. "Eve, tell him this is insane." But the words wouldn't come, because suddenly it didn't seem insane at all. Seemed like the only thing that made sense. "I think we should meet her," I heard myself say. Tristan groaned. "Oh God, you're both crazy." Alex pushed a piece of paper across the table. "Already set up a meeting. It's tomorrow at 10 a.m. Of course he had. The next morning, none of us spoke as we drove to the adoption agency. My stomach was in knots. What were we even doing? We weren't a family. We were three messed up adults bound together by DNA and bad history. Who in their right mind would let us take responsibility for a child? The social worker greeted us warmly. "The Sterlings, we've heard so much about your family." I almost laughed. I wondered which version of our family she'd heard about. The perfect public one or the messy reality. Then the door opened, and Sophia walked in. She was smaller than I expected, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit in one hand. Her eyes darted between the three of us curiously. "Hi," she said shyly. "Are you really going to be my family?" And just like that, nothing else mattered. Alex knelt down to her level. "We'd like to try," he said gently. "That's okay with you?" Sophia considered this seriously. Then she nodded. "'Kay, but I have some rules." Tristan barked a surprised laugh. "Yeah? What rules?" "No broccoli," Sophia said firmly. "And I get to pick the movie on Fridays, and ... She hesitated, then added, quietly, "No giving me back." Something shattered in my chest. Alex reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he took her small hand in his. "No giving back," he promised. "Ever." Sophia studied him for a long moment, then turned to Tristan and me. "Do you promise to?" Tristan's eyes were suspiciously bright. Cross my heart, I crouched down next to Alex. "We promise, Sophia, no matter what." She nodded, satisfied. Then she held up her stuffed rabbit. "This is Mr. Hopper. He's very polite, but he doesn't like hugs." And just like that, we weren't three broken people in a broken family anymore. We were something new, something hopeful, something that might, against all odds, work. The first week with Sophia was like walking through a minefield while blindfolded. None of us knew what we were doing. Alex kept buying parenting books and leaving them conspicuously around the house. Tristan started a swear jar after Sophia, repeated one of his more colorful phrases to the social worker. I caught myself holding my breath every time she called one of us Aunt Eve or Uncle Tris. It's like she was testing how the words felt in her mouth. She didn't call Alex anything at first. The social workers came often those first days, observing, taking notes. I could see them cataloging the expensive furniture, the stocked kitchen, the freshly painted room we'd prepared for Sophia. Checking off boxes about stability and resources while completely missing the way all three adults in the house jumped. Every time the phone rang, Sophia herself was quiet but watchful. Too watchful for an 8-year-old, she noticed everything, the way Tristan's hands shook when he thought no one was looking. How Alex would suddenly leave the room when certain songs came on the radio. My careful counting of days sober on the calendar by my bed. On the 5th night, I found her sitting at the top of the stairs in her pajamas, listening to Alex and Tristan argue in the kitchen below. You can't just disappear for hours without telling anyone. Alex's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. I needed air, Tristan shot back. Or do you want me to start drinking again in front of the kid? I scooped Sophia up before they could say more. She didn't protest, just wrapped her thin arms around my neck and rested her head on my shoulder like she was exhausted. Are they always like that? Shay asked. As I tucked her back into bed, I smoothed her hair. Pretty much. She chewed her lip. My last foster mom said families aren't supposed to yell. I had to swallow hard before answering. Some families yell because they don't care. Ours yells because we do. We're just ... not very good at showing it nicely yet. Sophia considered this, then nodded solemnly. Okay. She reached under a pillow and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I made this for you. It was a family tree drawn in crayon. At the top were Mom and Dad's names, below, the three of us. And at the bottom, her own name carefully connected to all of us with bright red lines. Something hot and painful lodged in my throat. The next morning, I found Alex studying the drawing where Sophia had left it on the kitchen table. His fingers traced the lines lightly. We're failing at this, he said quietly. I poured coffee I didn't really want. We've had her less than a week. She asked me last night if I was her dad now. Alex's voice cracked. I didn't know what to say. Truth was, none of us knew our roles in this new configuration. Alex kept trying to be the responsible parent but froze whenever Sophia needed comfort. Tristan swung wildly between treating her like a little sister and a fragile doll, and me. I was just trying not to screw up the first good thing any of us had touched in years. Things came to a head when Sophia's social worker, Ms. Alvarez, came for her weekly visit. She took one look at our strained faces and Sophia's too quiet demeanor and asked to speak with us privately. This isn't working, she said bluntly, once Sophia was out of earshot. She's regressing nightmares, withdrawn behavior. I'm concerned. This environment is too unstable for her. Tristan made a wounded noise. Alex went very still. What do you suggest? I asked, though I already dreaded the answer. Ms. Alvarez hesitated. There's another family interested in Sophia. A married couple with experience fostering older children. They're prepared to take her as early as no. Alex's voice was steel. It's not happening. You have to understand? I understand. Perfectly. Alex stood, his control slipping for the first time since this began. Our father chose her. We made her a promise. She stays. Ms. Alvarez looked at each of us in turn. Then you need to start acting like a family. Not just for the agency's sake, but for hers. After she left, we sat in silence for a long time. Tristan spoke first. She's right. Alex rubbed his temples. I know. I thought of the family tree drawing of Sophia listening at the top of the stairs. Of all the ways we were failing her without meaning to. So what do we do? Alex took a deep breath. We get help. The next day, a child therapist named Dr. Bennett came to the house. She spoke with Sophia first, then with all of us together. Sophia is a resilient child, she told us afterward. But she's been through multiple placements. She expects this one to end like the others. Tristan looked sick. How do we make her understand it won't? Dr. Bennett smiled slightly. You show her every day, in 1,000 small ways. And you start by being honest about who you are as a family, the good and the bad. That night we gathered in the living room, all 4 of us. Sophia sat curled in an armchair. Mr. Hopper clutched to her chest. Alex spoke first. I'm sorry, I've been ... distant. The truth is, I don't know how to be what you need, but I want to learn. Tristan cleared his throat. And I'm not great with rules or ... feelings, but I'm not going anywhere. No matter what. My turn. I knelt in front of Sophia's chair. Families are supposed to take care of each other. Ours hasn't been very good at that, but we're trying. And we want you here, Sophia. Not because of promises or paperwork. Because you belong with us. Sophia studied each of us carefully. Then, for the first time since she'd arrived, she started to cry. Alex reached for her instinctively, then hesitated. But Sophia didn't. She launched herself into his arms, burying her face in his shoulder. I don't want to leave, she sobbed. Tristan and I joined the hug. The four of us clinging together in a messy, imperfect knot. You're not leaving, Alex whispered into her hair. You're home. Later, after Sophia had fallen asleep between us on the couch, Tristan looked at Alex. Really doing this, aren't we? Alex nodded, his hand resting gently on Sophia's back. We really are. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, that didn't scare me. The paperwork arrived on a Tuesday morning, thick official-looking envelopes from the family court that made my hands go cold when I pulled them from the mailbox. Inside were petitions for legal guardianship, home study forms, and a court date. Circled in red, 3 months from today to prove we could be a real family. Sophia was at school when the mail came. Alex spread the documents across the kitchen table, his fingers leaving faint smudges on the pristine pages. Tristan paced behind him, running a hand through his already messy hair. They're really making us jump through every hoop, Tristan muttered. Alex didn't look up. Standard procedure. We're unmarried siblings petitioning for joint custody. Of course they're being thorough. I picked up the home study checklist, interviews, background checks, home inspections, financial disclosures. A lump formed in my throat at the last item, letters of recommendation from people who could attest to our stability and moral character. Who exactly is going to vouch for our moral character? I asked, trying to keep my voice light. Tristan barked a laugh. Right? Should we call up my bookie? Your old dealer. Alex shot us both a warning look. This isn't a joke. If we want to keep Sophia, we need to take this seriously. The weight of what we were attempting settled over the room. 3 broken people trying to convince the world we could raise a child who'd already been failed by so many. The first home visit came the following week. Mrs. Donahue from Family Services arrived precisely at 9, her sharp eyes missing nothing as she toured the house. She noted the fresh fruit in the bowl on the counter, the child-proof locks on the cabinets, the newly installed nightlight in the hallway. And where does Sophia sleep? She asked, pen poised over her clipboard. Alex led her to the room we'd painted, pale yellow at Sophia's request. Mrs. Donahue's expression softened slightly at the sight of the books. Neatly arranged on the shelves, the stuffed animals lined up on the bed. Did she arrange these herself? Alex nodded. She likes things orderly. We try to respect that. Mrs. Donahue made a note. I wondered what she was writing, that we'd learned to accommodate Sophia's need for control after her first nightmare, when she'd sobbed about not being able to keep her things safe in previous homes, that Tristan had spent an entire Saturday building those bookshelves because the store-bought ones wouldn't do right by her books. The interview portion was worse. Mrs. Donahue sat in our formal living room, firing questions while her pen scratched across the page. Mr. Sterling, your financial records show some irregularities in recent years. Care to explain? Tristan's jaw tightened. I had some gambling issues. I'm in treatment now. Ah, and you, Ms. Sterling, your medical records indicate multiple rehab stays. The old shame burned my cheeks. 2 years sober. It wasn't entirely true-eyed. Had a slip the month before Sophia came to us. But I hadn't touched anything since. Alex fielded most of the questions about parenting plans, schooling, healthcare. He sounded confident, prepared. Only I noticed how his fingers tapped an uneven rhythm against his knee. When Mrs. Donahue finally left, the three of us sat in exhausted silence. "We're doomed," Tristan announced to the ceiling. Alex rubbed his temples. "We just need to get through the next few months. Keep everything stable, no surprises." Life, of course, had other plans. The first crisis hit 2 weeks later. Sophia's teacher called mid-morning to report she'd been in a fight. By the time Alex and I arrived at the school, Sophia was sitting stiffly in the principal's office, her braid coming undone and a darkening bruise on her cheek. A boy named Jason sat sniffling across the room, his nose bleeding onto his Star Wars shirt. Sophia threw the first punch. The principal informed us gravely. Sophia didn't deny it. She just glared at her shoes, her small hands clenched into fists. Alex knelt beside her. "Why?" Her voice was barely audible. "He said foster kids get returned because they're broken." Something sharp twisted in my chest. Alex's face went carefully blank. It's the way it always did when he was fighting to keep control. The principal droned on about zero-tolerance policies and appropriate behavior. I stopped listening. All I could see was Sophia's white-knuckled grip on the edge of her seat. The way she was holding herself so still, like any movement might shatter her completely. "We'll handle this at home, Alex," said firmly, cutting off the principal's lecture. The car ride back was silent. Sophia sat in the back seat, staring out the window. I watched her in the rearview mirror, remembering all the times I'd punched walls or thrown bottles when the pain got too big to hold inside at home. Alex sent Sophia to her room to think about her actions. The moment her door closed, Tristan exploded. That's it. She defends herself against some little jerk and gets sent to her room. Alex's voice was tight. "Violence isn't the answer. Sometimes it is." Tristan ran a hand through his hair. "Christ, Alex, she's been kicked around her whole life. Maybe standing up for herself is progress." I stepped between them before it could escalate. "She's scared. Not of punishment, of us sending her away." The fight drained out of both of them. Alex sank onto the couch. "What do we do?" For once, he was asking instead of dictating. I took a deep breath. "We show her we're not going anywhere, no matter what." That night, I found Sophia sitting on her bedroom floor, carefully reorganizing her bookshelf. She didn't look up when I entered. I sat beside her and handed her a book that had fallen behind the desk. "When I was your age, I got in a fight too." Sophia's hands stilled. "You did?" Broke a boy's nose for saying my mom didn't love me because she was sick." I traced the spine of a nearby book. "Got suspended for a week. Did your dad get mad?" The question caught me off guard. "Yeah, but not for the reason I thought. He was mad I got caught, not that I fought back." Sophia absorbed this. "Is Uncle Alex mad?" I considered lying. Instead, I told the truth. "He's scared. We all are. We don't want to mess this up." Sophia picked at the carpet. "Jason said foster. Parents always give you back when you're bad." I turned her face gently toward mine. "Listen to me. There is nothing you could do that would make us send you away. Nothing." Her lower lip trembled. "Promise?" I crossed my heart. "Promise," she launched, herself into my arms then, clinging like she might never let go. I held her tight, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. Feeling the dampness of her tears against my neck, Alex appeared in the doorway, Tristan hovering behind him. They took in the scene silently. Then Alex crossed the room and knelt beside us, adding his arms to the hug. Tristan joined a second later, completing the circle. Later, after Sophia had fallen asleep, surrounded by all of us, Tristan whispered, "We're really in it now, huh?" Alex's hand rested gently on Sophia's back. He said softly, "We really are." The next morning, Sophia came downstairs to find the kitchen covered in sticky notes. Tristan's read best uncle ever, self-proclaimed. Alex's said strict but fair, probably. Mine simply said yes. That's really her natural hair color. Sophia's laughter rang through the house as she added her own notes to our foreheads, Grumpy. In mornings for Alex, sneaky candy giver for Tristan, and for me, simply my person. Mrs. Donahue's second visit went better than the first. She seemed surprised by the changes the family calendar on the wall. The photos of all four of us on the fridge. The way Sophia automatically reached for Alex's hand when she got nervous. At the end of the visit, she handed Alex a form. The court requires letters from non-family members attesting to your suitability as guardians. You'll need at least 3 each. After she left, we stared at the form in dismay. Who the hell is going to write mine? Tristan groaned. Alex was already making a list. Your sponsor from Gamblers Anonymous. That professor you mentored last year. Maybe you're old. Wait, I interrupted, pointing to the fine print. It says here the letters can't be from anyone paid by or related to us. That rules out employees, doctors, therapists, ... Tristan paled. So basically, we need people who know us, but don't depend on us to say nice things about us. The impossibility of the task settled over us. After everything, the addictions, the betrayals, the years of isolation, who did we have left? Who would vouch for us? Sophia, oblivious to our panic, bounced into the kitchen. Can we get ice cream? Alex forced a smile. Sure, kiddo, as we piled into the car. I realized this was exactly what families did pretended. Everything was fine for the kids while quietly falling apart inside. The ice cream parlor was crowded. We found a table in the corner. Sophia was midway through explaining her elaborate Sunday construction process when a familiar voice cut in. Well, if it isn't the Sterling siblings. We all looked up to see Miranda Chen, my old college roommate and the witness to my worst years of drinking, standing by our table with her 2 daughters. My spoon clattered to the table. Miranda, hi. Her gaze flicked between us and Sophia. I heard about your father and ... this. She gestured vaguely at our group. Tristan stiffened. Alex's hand tightened on his napkin. Then Sophia, bless her, piped up. Are you friends with Aunt? Evie Miranda's expression softened slightly. We used to be, a long time ago. Sophia nodded sagely. She's better now. Not perfect, but better. Miranda's lips quirked. Is that so? MMH? Sophia took a huge bite of ice cream. She reads me stories and doesn't yell when I have nightmares. And she always shares her fries. Something in Miranda's face shifted. She met my eyes. You're really doing this? The whole parenting thing? I swallowed hard, trying to. She studied me for a long moment, then reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. Call me. I'd like to hear how it's going. As she walked away, Tristan let out a low whistle. Think she'd write your letter? I tucked the card carefully into my wallet, not daring to hope. Maybe. Alex's phone buzzed. He frowned at the screen. It's the lawyer. The court moved up our hearing date. How much sooner? Tristan asked. Alex's face told us everything. 2 weeks. The ice cream suddenly tasted like ash in my mouth. 2 weeks to prove we deserve to be a family. 2 weeks to find people willing to speak for us. 2 weeks to convince a judge that 3 damaged people and 1 traumatized kid added up to something whole. Sophia, sensing the shift in mood, reached across the table to squeeze my hand. It'll be okay, she whispered. I squeezed back, wishing I could believe her. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of frantic preparations. The house became a war room, with legal documents spread across every available surface and sticky notes, marking critical deadlines on the walls. Alex transformed into a man possessed, compiling binders of evidence that our home was suitable: school records, medical checkups, even meal plans. Tristan took on the Herculean task of tracking down character references. I watched him pore over old contacts late into the night, his face illuminated by the glow of his laptop. Some calls ended with abrupt hang-ups. Others resulted in hesitant agreements. My own efforts were more subdued but no less desperate. I reached out to Miranda first, meeting her for coffee at a quiet cafe near her office. The years between us hung heavy in the air as we sipped our drinks. "You look good," she said finally. "Healthy." I twisted my napkin. It's 2 years sober mostly. She raised an eyebrow at the qualification but didn't press. "And this adoption? You're really committed." The question made my chest tight. I've never been more sure of anything. Miranda studied me for a long moment before nodding. "I'll write the letter. You need to understand what you're signing up for. That little girl has been through hell. So have we," I said quietly. Something in my voice must have convinced her. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand, the first real contact we'd had in nearly a decade. The day before our court hearing. Disaster struck. Sophia came home from school, feverish and listless. By evening, her temperature had spiked to dangerous levels. We took turns sitting with her through the night, applying cool cloths and coaxing sips of water past her cracked lips. Alex hovered near the door, his face drawn. "We need to call the doctor." Tristan shook his head. "It's just a virus. Kids, get them." But when morning came and Sophia still hadn't improved, we found ourselves in the emergency room instead of preparing for court. The sterile white walls and antiseptic smell sent me back to too many bad memories. Mom's final days. Dad's long decline. Sophia, flushed and miserable, clung to me as the nurses examined her. "Don't go," she whispered when they tried to separate us for tests. Alex stepped forward. "I'm her legal guardian. Where she goes, we go." The doctor diagnosed severe strep throat with complications. As they started an IV, Sophia's small hand gripped mine with surprising strength. "What about the judge?" Tristan smoothed her hair. "Don't worry about that, kiddo." But we were all worrying. Our carefully constructed plans unraveled by a microscopic bacterium. Alex made the call to the courthouse from the hospital hallway. I watched through the glass as his shoulders slumped further with each passing minute. When he returned, his face was grim. "They won't reschedule. If we're not there tomorrow, the petition is dismissed." The words hung between us. Months of effort, of healing, of becoming something resembling a family, all undone because life refused to follow our carefully laid plans. Sophia began to cry silently, tears tracking down her fevered cheeks. "It's my fault." I gathered her into my arms, careful of the IV line. "No, sweetheart, never your fault." Alex paced the small room. "There has to be another way." Tristan scrolled through his phone suddenly. "Wait, what if one of us goes? The hearing can proceed with partial attendance if there's a medical emergency." Hope flickered weakly. "Who would go?" I asked. We all knew the answer. Alex was the only one who could present our case with the required precision. But that meant Tristan and I would stay with Sophia, that Alex would have to face the judge. Alone, he took a deep breath. "I'll do it." The hospital night stretched endlessly. Sophia drifted in and out of fitful sleep while we kept watch. At some point, Tristan convinced me to rest in the uncomfortable chair next to her bed. I woke to find him reading softly from one of her favorite books. His voice uncharacteristically gentle. Alex was already back at the house preparing for court. He'd left a note on the bedside table. "Tell her I'll see her soon. All of us, together." Morning brought slight improvement. Sophia's fever broke around dawn, leaving her exhausted but lucid. The doctor said she could likely go home in another day. Tristan checked his watch. Court starts in an hour. We turned on the TV in Sophia's room, flipping to a local news channel that sometimes covered notable cases. The camera panned across the courthouse steps where Alex stood stiffly in his suit. Our family lawyer at his side, Sophia reached for my hand. "What if they say no?" I squeezed her fingers. "Then we try again and again, as many times as it takes." The hearing wasn't televised, leaving us to imagine the proceedings. The minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness. Tristan paced the small room while I pretended to read Sophia a story, both of us too distracted to focus. When my phone finally rang, we all jumped. Alex's voice was carefully neutral. "It's done." My heart stopped. And a pause. Then the judge granted temporary guardianship, pending final approval in 6 months. Sophia's gasp was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. Tristan whooped loud enough to startle the nurses. Alex continued, his voice cracking slightly. "She said our willingness to put Sophia's needs first today demonstrated our commitment." That and ... He hesitated, the letters. Apparently they were quite moving. Tears blurred my vision. All those people from our past Miranda, Tristan's old professor. Alex's college mentor had come through when it mattered most. "We're coming home," Alex said softly. "All of us." When he arrived at the hospital hours later, still in his suit, but looking rumpled and exhausted, Sophia held out her arms wordlessly. Alex gathered her up with surprising gentleness, his face pressed into her hair. Tristan clapped him on the back. "You did it, man." Alex shook his head. "We did it." That night, back in our own house with Sophia asleep upstairs, the three of us sat around the kitchen table in silence. The weight of what we'd accomplished and what still lay ahead settled over us. Tristan broke the quiet first. "So, we're really parents now." Alex exhaled slowly. "Legally, yes." I traced the grain of the wooden table, thinking of all the meals we'd eaten here as children, all the fights we'd had, all the silences. Now there would be new memory: Sophia's laughter, her drawings on the fridge, her small hands carefully setting the table. "It's not going to be easy," I said. Alex met my eyes. "Nothing worth doing ever is." Tristan raised his glass of water in a toast to the world's most messed up family. We clinked glasses quietly, careful not to wake the sleeping child upstairs, the child who, against all odds, was officially ours. The first snow of winter was falling when we gathered in the judge's chambers for the final hearing. 6 months had passed since we'd been granted temporary custody. 6 months of parenting classes and social worker visits and learning how to be a family. Sophia sat between Alex and me, swinging her legs nervously, while Tristan fidgeted with his tie. Judge Wilkins reviewed the final report with an unreadable expression. The document contained everything: the good Sophia's improved grades and social adjustment, the bad my one relapse that resulted in a missed therapy session, and the messy reality in between. When the judge finally looked up, her gaze went straight to Sophia. "Young lady, do you know why we're here today?" Sophia nodded solemnly. "To make sure I'm happy." A faint smile touched the judge's lips. "And are you happy?" Sophia considered this with more gravity than any 8-year-old should possess. "Most days when Uncle Tris burns dinner, not so much." Tristan choked back a laugh. Even the judge's stern expression softened. The proceeding was surprisingly brief. No dramatic courtroom speeches, no last-minute objections. Just a series of questions answered, papers signed. And then the words we'd been waiting for: permanent guardianship granted. Outside the courthouse, snowflakes caught in Sophia's hair as she twirled on the sidewalk. "Does this mean I never have to leave?" Alex knelt to button her coat. "It means you're stuck with us, kid." Sophia threw her arms around his neck with such force she nearly knocked him over. Tristan and I exchanged glances over their heads. This stiff, proper man who now had a child's glittery hair clip stuck to his expensive suit. Life settled into a new rhythm after that. Mornings were chaotic, Tristan burning toast, Alex insisting on reviewing homework, me trying to remember where we'd put Sophia's left shoe. School days blended into weekends filled with soccer games and birthday parties and all the ordinary moments we'd never realized we were missing. The ghosts of our past didn't disappear, of course. Some nights I still woke gasping from dreams of empty bottles and emptier promises. Tristan's hands shook sometimes when bills came due. Alex would occasionally retreat into himself for days, overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility. But now there was Sophia, slipping her small hand into mine during my bad moments. Sophia reminding Tristan to breathe when his anxiety spiked. Sophia leaving silly drawings on Alex's desk when he worked too late. The real test came in early spring. I was cleaning out the attic when I found Dad's old cigar box tucked behind. Some holiday decorations. Inside were more letters, dozens of them, all addressed to Sophia in Dad's precise handwriting. The earliest was dated just after Mom's death, the most recent mere weeks before his own passing. I carried the box downstairs like it might explode. Alex and Tristan gathered around the kitchen table as I set it down. "You didn't know about these?" Tristan asked Alex. Alex shook his head, looking as shaken as I'd ever seen him. He never mentioned it. Sophia peered at the box curiously. "Are those for me?" We let her open the first one herself. It was short, just a few lines dated shortly after Dad began the adoption process all those years ago. Asterisk, Dear Sophia. Asterisk, asterisk, today I saw your picture for the first time. You were wearing a yellow dress and holding a stuffed rabbit. I think you might be my daughter someday. I hope so. Asterisk, Sophia's fingers trembled as she reached for another. The letter spanned years' notes about how Dad had followed her progress. Through the system, his hopes for her, his regrets when his health failed. The last one was unfinished. Asterisk, my dear Sophia. Asterisk, asterisk. I'm sorry I won't get two asterisk. The sentence trailed off. Never completed, Sophia cried quietly, her tears dripping onto the faded paper. Alex gathered her into his arms while Tristan and I exchanged helpless looks over her head. Later, after Sophia had fallen asleep surrounded by the letters, the three of us sat on the back porch watching fireflies blink in the gathering dark. He never stopped trying, Tristan said at last. Even when he was sick. Alex stared at his hands. All this time, I thought he'd given up on family after Mom died. I thought of the adoption papers, the storage unit, these letters. He was just trying to rebuild it in his own way. The silence that followed was comfortable, the kind that only exists between people who have weathered storms together. Inside, Sophia called out in her sleep. All three of us stood at once, then laughed quietly at our shared instinct. I'll go, Alex said, but Tristan was already moving. I got it. I stayed on the porch a while longer, listening to the sounds of my family moving through the house. Tristan's quiet murmurs to Sophia, Alex putting away dishes. The creak of floorboards as Sophia settled back to sleep. The stars were bright overhead, the same ones that had shone down on this house when we were children, when our family was whole and then broken and now impossibly whole again in a different way. When I finally went inside, I paused outside Sophia's door. Tristan had fallen asleep in the chair beside her bed, one hand resting protectively near her shoulder. Alex stood in the doorway watching them, his face softer than I'd ever seen it. He noticed me and stepped back, making room. Together we looked. At the two of them, the brother who'd once run from everything, now standing his ground. The child who'd been waiting for a family finally home. Alex touched my shoulder lightly. You okay? I nodded, unable to speak around the sudden lump in my throat. He seemed to understand. Me too. We turned off the light together and left the door open, just a crack, the way Sophia liked it. Downstairs, the kitchen was still messy from dinner. Homework was spread across the living room floor. And a single pink rain boot lay abandoned by the front door. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, that was enough.